Hey guys, welcome back. Um, I wasn't. I told myself at the start of this year, that I was going to post every month, on just my filmmaking journey, and I missed last month. And I said I was gonna just make it up by filming or talking and posting one at the beginning of this month and then at the end of this month. And we're already at the end of this month and I keep pushing it off. So I finally got myself to, get out of bed and get back here and just talk again. So yeah, I mean, life has been kind of whipping my ass lately. But, I feel like I gotta stay true to myself and get on here and, just talk it out. I don't know. I don't know who's watching, or like, I know I'll be watching, hopefully, someday in the future, looking back on this and, look back on the process and everything. So, I'd like to start out with, I was also in Japan last month as well. And I wanted to film and like record a video there, but I was also just like going through my own journey there in Japan, had a lot of thoughts and never got the time to record and talk there, which I really wanted to do, but that's okay. I wrote a lot though, while I was in Japan, pretty much every night. And it was tough because I had a great time in Japan, solo traveling, just being out there, eating the foods, just walking around, just existing. But it was, a lot of people ask me, oh, how was Japan, blah, 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 and everything. And I guess I just like, kind of just like, default to saying like, oh, it was good, it was great, I had a great time, blah, blah, because that's an easier answer than telling the truth. And the truth is that it was quiet. I mean, I think it's also just like, it was quiet and it was loud. I mean, it's just like the culture of Japan, right? It's like everyone's, to themselves. Everyone's in line. No one talks on subways, but also like when I was in Kyoto and, just like strolling through the neighborhood, it was quiet, I feel like that's the one word I can really describe it. And in its silence, in the moments of silence while I was in Japan, it kind of opened up my mind to having like a rush of thoughts and just realizing what was running through my mind, and it was very revealing, and it's something that I needed for sure, because I mean, I did get a lot of time to think this past winter and just being alone and blah, 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 but something about just being outside of my world and in an entirely different one and just being invisible, just existing there, just brought me down to myself. But, I just want to start off this talk by reading a little excerpt from one of the days that I journaled and and wrote. On March 24th, 2026, I named this A Canal's Dream. The canal was nice. It was so peaceful. I felt so free to collapse. I laid my head back onto my bag and closed my eyes. I could feel the sun's hand lay across my face and her gentle breath graze across my cotton chest. The sound of the water trickled into my ears, and the crane's voice spoke music into my ears. The canal suddenly became my personal symphony. The muse to aid a short slumber midday, even in my darkness. I could see the weeds by the water and where the stone hedges met the sky. Then a piece of bread, or rubber bread, fell onto my lap. I couldn't see what came upon me, perhaps a gift from the crane, who knows? I didn't want to lose this moment. I didn't want the symphony to end. I wanted it to take me. So then I took a breath and finally slept. Yeah. That kind of sums up, I don't know, just like the general feeling that I had throughout the trip. I don't know, I've realized spending a lot of time to myself that it was, while I was in Japan, I was like constantly thinking about character and trying to find every little meaning and association that I can scavenge of Japanese culture to I don't know, inspire me or to get something for the film that I'm working on writing currently. And maybe it was because of that I felt like sometimes, I couldn't fully enjoy the trip, because it was like constantly running through my mind and giving myself pressure on nobody's pressuring except me. I'm my worst enemy. And it's just it was just loud in my head. But I learned something else, I learned more about, being alone and just being with myself and what I was feeling and what I was thinking. Everything was just so much more apparent. And I don't know, it's hard to see the process sometimes, especially when life is life. And I was having a writer's block for the past couple months. It was completely internal, but now after I've come back, I've been able to get some more progress done, but not as much as I would like, but it's hard to see myself in the process. It's hard to see the bigger picture at the moment, and yeah, hopefully when I watch this back, I'll be wrong. I don't know. I just got off of my bed and I was just like, I need to do something, take some action, and I just wanted to talk, And I realized that, I love going on YouTube these days and just like watching videos of people talk. I don't know. It just like, you know, talk about art, talk about their art, or talk about like life revelations, or like, you know, old men smoking their pipe and talking about conversations. I don't know, just whatever. I find it comforting, you know, that in a way, I guess it's like what I'm doing here. You know, I'm sure if anyone's watching this, they're listening to me for the same reason. So I don't know. I guess what I had in mind was talking just about my favorite movies at the moment. I mean, I would love to talk more about like the progress that I've been making with my story, yokai, and how much I've been learning. But I think that's for another time when, you know, I've put myself together a bit more and can speak about it. But right now, life, story, the metaphor for life. And there is my favorite, like some of my favorite movies is probably Rango. It's an animated movie for those who don't know. I watched it as a child, and I think it's aged very finely and will continue to do so in the future. And I love that movie so much because, for one, it's great animation. How it was made, the grotesqueness of the characters, very provocative. I don't know, that's like the words that first come to me when I think about its animation style. Because it's not, you know, your typical DreamWorks like picture of like clean animation, you know. Something about it when I was younger used to make me uncomfortable, but now that I watch it, it just feels real. You know? I don't know. And I enjoyed it. I love the story, and I've come to learn that I love watching movies and stories where there is characters that are out of place, who have this sort of imposter syndrome. You know, characters that are feel alone, I guess. I guess it's comforting for me, and usually in those films, at the end of the story, there's always this cathartic moment that I love living through, and feeling that at the end with them, like something that they've won or realized. And you know, it really does give me comfort and meaning, and that's kind of the whole point of why we write stories, right? So Rango is, you know, we start off with the story with a chameleon that's, you know, alone, isolated in his fish tank, you know, with no friends, and essentially just like playing around by himself, like acting like he's on a movie set, a big star, and, you know, making fun for himself, you know. Kind of like how I feel a lot of the time when I'm alone and just in my own world. And then you have the inciting incident of him being literally launched out into the world. Spoilers, I guess. And then he goes on this whole hero's journey of like, self-identity and all that jazz, until you have this epic of him playing a role as a sheriff, being an imposter and having to make it up as he goes until the very end, where he's pushed to the limit and tested, and he loses everything once more, and he's alone in the desert until the moment where the spirit of the West comes to him, and and then he tells Rango, like, "Don't you get it now, Rango?" Sorry, I'm like trying to remember the quote. It slipped me, but it's something along the lines of like, "Don't you understand, Rango? It's not about you. It's about them. No man can walk out of his own story." And that moment, hearing those words, was, I don't know, so compelling to me. And then of course he goes back to the town, saves the people, saves the day, and he truly becomes a hero because he doesn't serve himself, but he serves the people that he loves, serves the people that he cares about. And I don't know, I think it's a beautiful story, and something I love to live vicariously through. I love epics, I love all the action, blah blah blah. But yeah, and that's stories are all carry a certain philosophy about life, right? Just like storytellers for centuries, like people who tell fairy tales, people who write short stories, proverbs, blah blah blah. Like, I don't know, they all carry some sort of meaning, some sort of philosophy that tries to teach you the truth about life and living as a human, and it's funny that like I'm talking about this. It's something I was thinking about for a long time, but I recently learned about this particular thing that Carl Jung said about fairy tales, and about these stories across all nations, across all countries, that one story talks about one thing and another fairy tale talks about the other. I'm totally butchering this explanation, but stick with me. It's like, like one story tells you to keep fighting and never give up, and another story tells you that it's okay to give up and you need to know when to give up, right? And this sort of contradiction, I love that word, contradiction. That's so, I don't know, so repetitive. That's a repetitive word that I come to use and come to hear, learning about art and stories, and being human, of course. Yeah, something about that. It's not. where am I going with this? It's not, it's the what I'm trying to say is the point isn't that it's not about the philosophy itself that the story is telling. You know, I think there's millions of movies out there, all these screenwriters and filmmakers that are helping to create a story and put stories out there into the world. They all say something about life, about how we should live, or the truth about life. And I think just like that, just like what Carl Jung said, I think there's so many like movies are our modern fairy tales. You know, they all have different philosophies, and they all only work, stories only work if they have truth to them. Audience can feel it, humans can feel it, they know. So yeah, I mean, that I'm sure there's tons of movies out there that say one thing and another says another. But it's I guess it all comes from a place of the writer and the filmmaker's truth about how they see life and how they understand it. And in the bigger scheme of things, the bigger picture of the whole world and meaning and life, blah blah blah, fairy tales and movies, blah blah blah. It's it all comes down to what Carl Jung said. How there's one commonality between all fairy tales and all stories, which is never hurt the animal that helps. Never harm the animal that helps. You know, and he defined this to be, in every human story, to be a sort of conscience that we have. The, as he likes to say, the, what was it? The universal subconscious? Something like that. I'm slipping my mind, but the collective unconscious, that's what it is. That we have, that we all have a part. I mean, that's something I feel like something I have to digest more. I think that's definitely big. But yeah, I thought that was very interesting. But I'm going off on a tangent. But what I'm trying to say is, like, you know, like that's the reason why Rango is like such a favorite movie of mine, is because of the message that it's saying, and you know, the character and the plot and everything about it. It's just, you know, I really feel for, and something how I want to live and how I want to put meaning towards my life. I mean, we're all individuals because we are shaped by the infinite possibilities of philosophies and values that we hold, right? And that defines our choices. And because of that, well, none of us can be the same. But yeah, I don't know. And I think the second movie I want to talk about is something that I've been thinking about. You know, I didn't think that this movie would have such an impact on me per se. Maybe not. Maybe impact is strong, but it left a very strong impression on me, more than I thought it would, and I keep coming back to it. And it's a film by David Fincher, and you know, he's David Fincher. You know, he's the guy, and he's made very big hits like Zodiac and you know, like, yeah, and all those movies. But I think the one that honestly really touched me the most, clearly, was the story of Benjamin Button. And thinking about it, you know, out of all his films, that's the story that I connected with the most. I think all his other movies are great, and great cinematography and great design, and you know, he's a genius with that. But the story of Benjamin Button, you know, it's a great metaphor about, you know, it's a love story between two people who, Benjamin Button has this rare disease of being born old and dying young. You know, by young I mean like infantile. And he's almost moving backwards in life, and the girl is, you know, she's growing up, you know, regularly, you know, as a normal person should, but it's almost like this situation of like star-crossed lovers almost, and they seem to be running parallelly in parallel directions, but in opposite ways almost, you know. That's how I kind of like envision their timelines, and it makes sense to me. And you know, they always seem to meet each other at different times in their lives, different ages, and continue to miss each other because yeah, just because of life, but also the way he looks and she looks and how she feels and how he feels, you know, all told through the plot of him to the reversing of age and the progression of one. But for some reason, the story does a beautiful way of connecting between two people, almost like in real life, how, you know, like love between you and one person, you know, timing the right time, and missing each other and having just different ways of seeing life and everything. It's just, and how we look, it changes, and we're constantly going through changes, and it works. Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since I watched the film, but it somehow it's a great metaphor. And I keep coming back to it, and specifically the end of that film, when spoilers, you know, at this point the girl is, you know, she's old. I think, you know, she's a grandma, and she has kids and she has grandkids and whatnot. I forget if it's their kid or something like that, but obviously because of that reverse, the guy is Benjamin Button is, you know, turned into a baby, but he's like has the mind of an old man. So it's you know, he's going through dementia as Alzheimer's or dementia or whatever as a child, and he basically gets escorted into her care, and it's ironic because it's like sometimes, you know, as working as a nurse, I see that, and that's actually real. You know, it's a lot of these old couples or old grandmas and grandpas that I take care of. there's this way of life reverting us when we're older into children, right? And it's kind of what happened to Benjamin, and she's a grandma taking care of a child, and it happens, and I see it, and it's beautiful at the end, but it's like he writes a letter before he completely loses it, to his child or her child or whatever, and one of the lines, one of the quotes that I remember hearing, is like, and I hope you're happy, and if you're not, I hope you have the courage to start all over again. Yeah, I don't know. I've just been thinking about that line a lot, and it left an impression on me. I would have to say that is probably my favorite David Fincher movie. Yeah. I don't know who the screenwriter is, but I'll have to look into that. But I think that's something that's been a prominent voice in my current state of life, and yeah, it's something that I think it's a beautiful way of looking at life, and going through it. And I don't know, I'm gonna use that line when I'm old in the future and tell that to my kids, because I think it's so powerful, in this universe that doesn't care about anything, care about us, nothing matters. So having the courage to step back up and pursue happiness, I don't know, meaning. But yeah, it's just become, I guess, more prominent just because I've come in a crossroads with life currently, especially with my filmmaking and just what I want to, what to do with it. I love writing stories. Well, I can't say I love the process because it's tough. It's a tough process, but I do love it. I don't know. I love. I'm still learning the process. Let's just say that, and maybe by the end of this process, I'll be able to look back and see what I've learned. And it's harder because, with my first story with Mapo Tofu, it was more so of almost like a stream of consciousness. I was just catapulted into writing a story, and just like trying to make a short film. And I don't know, I didn't know anything about structure. I didn't know anything about plot, inciting incident, characters. I didn't know where to begin, but I just came up with something. I just vomited what was in my mind, what I thought felt good, what made me laugh, what made me scared. I don't know. It came out, and by the end of it, I remember at when I went to the screening in New York, I was asked what inspired you? What inspired you to make this film? And honestly, I was stunned because I didn't know what to say. I I truly there was no inspiration except just offering myself, I guess, and what's going through my mind. And yeah, but it's different with this my next story, the one that I've been working on, yokai, and it's I'm in the process of giving it more form, giving more structure. Um, I wanted it to be tighter. I wanted to give meaning. Not that how to make mapo tofu didn't have meaning, it clearly did, but it was like a total like journey of discovery, writing that story to the end of sharing it with others and hearing what my friends and family had to say about it, and me going back to it and just kind of like deconstructing it, and why did I choose this image, why did I say these things, why did I say that. And it was just, it's just a series of questions about myself, and I, before I even knew it, like I'm on this journey of why, constantly asking myself questions about myself, about being human. And before I knew it, I'm just, I'm on the artist's journey. I was in the process of becoming a storyteller and writing truth and understanding myself. And it's great because what I love so much about what I'm doing right now, even though it's tough, is that I write my story, and I'm living vicariously through myself, learning myself, breaking myself down, feeling things, that I wouldn't have felt otherwise, going back in time, going back into experience, going into other worlds, and piecing it all together to create meaning. And I'm slowly working backwards, and it's tough, and I feel like it becomes very repetitive, and I have to keep coming back to it. And I'm sure I'm not the only writer out there that feels this, but I think this is, it opened my eyes, to what story does for me and what it can do for others. So yeah, it's I totally forgot what I was talking about, but yeah, it's been great, and that's why I love what I'm doing, working on my art, working on my craft as a storyteller. And I hope it's good. Yeah, but oh, I remember now. I remember what I was talking about. It was because that impression has been prominent because I want to start over, and I want to have the courage to do so. And knowing myself, it's hard to break past that line. I'm always someone that I feel like like to stay safe and not break beyond that line, always staying within my line. And I don't know, I'm trying to figure out how to do this whole filmmaking thing, I guess. How to live life, live through life to write about it and create stories, have the capacity to do so. But I do know this for sure, is that this discovery that I've made and this constant unveiling of what it could do for me and for others is just so profound. And I really hope to continue doing so. I don't know how, I'm figuring that out right now. But yeah, I guess I'll end it with that. 41 minutes, it's not too bad. Yeah, well, I'm just proud that I was able to be back on here, to be honest, and talk. It feels good to talk. Yeah, I think it's great because, you know, I can also just talk, be free about my mind and talk about filmmaking, because I don't know, I think it's there's no one really for me to talk like this to, and I don't know, at least if they do, like, to really care. But I care, that's why you're watching this. And yeah, no one to like interrupt me either, just talking. But thanks for listening to me talk. All right, till next month, guys. Hopefully I will have more updates about how the story is evolving, and more of the process. And I'm also like really like reading, I've mentioned this before, but I'm reading the book like Story by Robert McKee to help me with structure, and it's been great, honestly, reading. And you know, I'm reading the book as I'm writing, and I'm going back and forth, and it's honestly, like, I feel like such a great way for me to learn how to write how to screenwrite, how to write screenplays, because it's like almost like it's like I'm working in real time with that, and I feel like that's the best way to learn, by doing it. But anyways, I'm gonna have like this, probably like this huge series where I'm like breaking down each thing from Robert McKee and how I applied that to yokai, and I'm really excited for that. And yeah, it's gonna be fun. But until then, we'll see. But yeah, good night.